Last segment, Roger Ailes, the pro. In a sentence or two, would you please critique each of the following as a communicator, particularly as a communicator on television? Richard Nixon.
He was hard work. I mean, it wasn't comfortable. It wasn't his medium.
Did you ever develop an affection for him?
Yes, I thought he was very smart. I thought he was socially awkward. People who heard the Nixon-Kennedy debate believed he won it on radio, on
right.
voice and substance. But Jack proved that life was changing, and they had to look at you and see you. And he was magnificent in those debates. So, I think it wasn't his medium. The times had changed, and he hadn't. So.
Ronald Reagan.
Reagan was a natural because he did not feel uncomfortable around cameras, directors, people, noise on the set. He'd been through it all.
Well, you say he was a natural. To what extent was it a kind of God-given innate gift, and to what extent was it that Reagan had been through decades in Hollywood and radio and just was professional? Were you ever
he was a serious professional. I mean, he knew, but he would say, where are my marks? I mean, he'd walk. You never hear a candidate walk in and say, "Where are my marks? Where's my key light? Okay, what's the backlight?" He could do that, and he knew it. He worked best with speechwriters, but he would also write a lot of his own material, as you know. He had his own thoughts about it. He was comfortable, and that's the most important thing. He was comfortable and likable.
George W. Bush.
I haven't studied. I've been so busy working in news. I was running Fox News. I saw what everybody said. I asked our research center to get me some good press on him, and they called me back in about an hour and said, "We can't find any." I said, "This guy's been president for 7 years. You can't find anything good about him?" They said, "Not really. I mean, he was at a bridge opening or something, and he was but I thought, wow,
So what? Here you have an honorable, hardworking man whose politics fundamentally conform with the politics that you've just been describing in the middle of the country, and he leaves office with an approval rating in the 30s.
Well, if you get pounded for that many years, now he did get good press right after 9/11, but so did everybody. Now we're too worried about the terrorist feelings. We won't even call them terrorists. We call them unhappy people who are trying to hurt us. I mean, that's just stupid.
Could he have done better? So he had the war.
He was not a natural communicator.
Did he let the medium get away from him? Could he have stayed on top of the press?
No.
He could not.
No.
He could not.
No. Not in my view.
All right. Barack Obama. Chris Matthews famously said after listening to an Obama speech, quote, "I felt a thrill going up my leg," close quote. Do you buy the Obama as magnificent orator?
The first time I saw him was a few years before he ran on a stage, and I said, that guy is really good. Now, he was doing teleprompter speeches, but he was really good. And he's obviously very smart, comfortable with language, comfortable with audiences, and so on. That is a big step. He's much more of a natural communicator. He's now so overexposed, and except in press conferences or anything where he might have to actually answer a question, that it's taken the edge off. I mean, you don't want to see too many Ginger Roger movies. I mean,
let me put you in this position. You advised Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, and George H.W. Bush in their camp. Let's just do the mental experiment. You're now David Axelrod.
And by the way, I didn't agree with their politics always. I mean, I don't feel it's my job.
From the point of view of a television professional,
what
advice do you give Barack Obama right now? One is you're overexposed?
He's overexposed. He's underexposed and overexposed. He said he's going to be transparent. He isn't. So that's underexposure. But he's on television every time I look at the television set. So he's kind of overexposed, but he's not letting us in on any of the inner workings of what he's trying to accomplish. He's got...
And the press and people respond to that. You can't pull that off.
No, they have an investment in him now because they jumped so far in the tank during the election they can't get out. But he's smart, and if you go to the American people sincerely and say, look, I really believe a $12 trillion deficit's a good idea. I mean, you have to sell it, but it's going to be a hard sell. You know, he has to sell his ideas. Richard Nixon, you know, in Presidential Power,
right.
what, 50, 60 years ago, wrote that the real power of the presidency is the power of persuasion.
Right.
He said, I didn't sell my health care plan well enough. Well, he
had a year.
He had 127 appearances to sell it. So either he needs to look at his speechwriters or exactly what he's saying about it. The bottom line is, if you think you can trick the American people, the old line, I mean, you can fool some of them some of the time, but you're not going to fool all of them very long.
So the notion that his oratorical gifts and his presence on television are so overwhelming that he can sell something that's unpopular to the public, that will not fly.
I don't think it will, but I think that he has the chance. He has more problems probably than any president. I mean, Bush had a problem. We were attacked, 3,000 people killed.
Right.
That was a tough problem. Every president has some tough problems. Some coast, some don't. But most of the times, it's how you face those times you live in, how you pass through those times. I think Barack Obama has still the opportunity to be a great president. But he has to decide, you know, he has to lead the American people. He can't tell them what to do, and he can't do it in a back room because they're going to catch on.
Okay. Last question. Roger, you have a home that you love, a family you cherish, and more money than your father, the electrical worker back in Warren, Ohio, could ever have dreamed of. Why don't you take up rose gardening? What keeps you coming in and putting in these long days?
Because there are too many people who want me to retire. and if it were only me, I'd probably do it. But I believe we're in the most difficult tipping point, probably decade of our history. And
you do?
Oh, absolutely. And we have to go back to understanding that we are Americans. That people, you know, multiculturalism, diversity, all those things are very good. But they don't trump the one word that should be taught in schools, unity. People came to this country from different countries and backgrounds and races to be Americans. So we're American African, we're American Jewish, we're American Irish, we're American something, but we're Americans. And we have got to go back to that culture, and we've got to teach it in our schools, and we've got to understand it, because we're making a difference in the world. The world looks to us to be strong. They look to us to be financially strong and militarily strong, because in the end we're fair. And ultimately, we're the only guys who show up when there's trouble. Look at Haiti. That should have been a UN problem.
And you can't walk away from the
mix
of it.
I can't walk away until I think that enough people understand how valuable and how important being an American is. That's a responsibility.
Roger Ailes, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Fox News, thank you. I'm Peter Robinson for Uncommon Knowledge. Thanks for joining us.